We've had some really cold, snowy weather lately, so I have been in the house a lot more and doing some winter crafting. Thank you guys for stopping by Lavender and Lace, and this is Alicia. I hope you enjoy the projects in today's video, and if it's cold where you are, I hope you're staying warm and cozy and you enjoy these ideas. So let's get started. For this first project, I just started by removing the tags from the bottle brush tree and the snowman sign, as well as the metal stake, and both of those came from Walmart. And you will also just need the base from one of the plastic cloche domes from the Dollar Tree, as well as a glass vase from the Dollar Tree, and just remove the stickers from that. I had a lot of sticky residue left over from the price tag on my vase, so I just took that over to my sink and I actually used a salt scrub that I have for my hands, and that worked really well to remove the residue. I just placed all of my items on the base first to make sure that everything would fit, and I will say before you start gluing everything down, just put your top on as well to see if the height is going to be right with all of your items. You'll see in just a little bit what I had to do to fix some of the things in my snow globe, which is what we're making. But I just took some hot glue and placed everything down and spaced that to where I thought it would look best and still be able to get the top on my snow globe. I wanted my snow globe to have a rustic farmhouse feel, so I just kept everything pretty simple and added the larger bottle brush tree as well as a few of the mini ones that I got from the Dollar Tree. And I also had a wooden snowman and Christmas tree that I added as well. And this is where I realized that I had made a measurement mistake. I put the globe on and saw that the bottle brush tree was too tall and it just bent over, which I actually thought about leaving it that way, but I decided I didn't like that, so I knew I needed to fix it. I just took one of my Cricut tools and removed that tree from the base, and I just took it off the stand and just put down some more hot glue and reapplied that to the base of my snow globe. I added some of the glittery faux snow to the base part of my snow globe, which will be the top, and I tried not to add too much of that. Sometimes I can be heavy-handed and add so much that it will bury all of the figurines on the base of my snow globe. And then I just went around and used some hot glue to attach the base to the top of the snow globe. To hide the seam where I had joined the top and the bottom together with hot glue, I just went back around that with some white hot glue and tried to make it look like some snowy drifts around the globe. For this project, I wanted some fir tree designs cut out in fabric, and to do that, I just went into my Cricut design space and I found 3 files that were free that I really liked. So I put those onto my canvas, got them sized the way that I wanted them, and I duplicated each design because I need a front and a back piece for each of the trees, and I got those ready to cut out. For each of my fabric pieces, I ironed them before I got them cut out to the size of my mat. So I just cut down each piece of fabric that I had chosen to a 12 by 12 square that would fit onto my fabric mats. One thing I love about my Cricut Maker is that I can cut out fabric, but you will need the pink mats from either Cricut or another brand that you really like, and you'll need the brayer tool. So you just place your fabric down and you'll use that tool to make sure you have it down securely and that there are no wrinkles, because that will mess up your cut. I like to have all of my mats prepped and ready to go. So once you get all of those done, you can take them to your Cricut machine and get your designs cut out. To be able to cut fabric, you will also need the rotary tool from Cricut, and that is easy to change out. You just remove your fine point blade from the housing and replace it with your rotary tool. I used the cotton setting in Design Space, and then I just loaded my mats into my machine and let that do the work. And I will say to watch the rollers carefully. Mine did pick up some of the threads on the side of the fabric, so after each mat I would have to remove some of those threads to make sure there wasn't anything that got clogged or stopped up. Once you have all of your pieces cut out, you just simply remove the excess fabric from the mats, and sometimes the rotary blade may not get all of the areas cut through completely, so I like to keep a pair of scissors handy, and then you just remove all of the pieces for your trees and you are ready for the next step. To put my fabric trees together, I just took some fabric hot glue and went around the edges, and I just did a small section at a time and pushed that down using my finger protector that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I repeated that step for each of my trees and left a small opening in the bottom so I would be able to stuff each tree. For my trees, I just used some fiber fill stuffing that I had on hand. If you don't have any of that, you can use an old pillow and just use the stuffing from there. And I like to pull apart small pieces for these smaller projects and just use either a skewer or a pencil to help you stuff your tree. While I was adding the stuffing, I decided that I wanted to add some embellishments to my trees. So if you want to do this step, I would do it before you stuff them. It just makes it a little bit easier. It wasn't really hard to do it after they were stuffed. But I decided to pick out some buttons that I thought looked well with this first tree, and I just hot glued those down to the front. And for the smallest of my trees, I took some of this burlap ribbon that I had picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I just did 2 rows there, and I secured that down with hot glue as well. And for my last tree, I just picked out one of the larger brown buttons and hot glued that down to the bottom right hand corner. For the trunks of my trees, I used some bamboo skewers, and these can be picked up in the kitchen section at Dollar Tree. I put them in each of my trees and just eyeballed the approximate height that I thought looked the best with each other. and I just trimmed off that remaining section with my miter shears. I used some of the fabric hot glue to close up the openings that I had left on each tree. I just put a small line there and made sure to press firmly along the edge of the opening, paying close attention to the trunk of the tree. I wanted to be sure that I pressed that fabric together very well there so that I wouldn't have any of this seam opening back up. I use some wood slices for the bases of my trees, and you can pick these up either at Dollar Tree or at Hobby Lobby. And to get the hole in my wood slices, I used a screwdriver and a nail as well. I don't have one of the small handheld drills that you can use. So I just took the nail first and made the initial hole, and then I used a hammer and my screwdriver and got that hole big enough for the skewer to fit down in, and I just put some hot glue in that and put the skewer in there and held that until it was secure. And this is how my fabric trees turned out. I think they are my favorite project from today's video. Tell me what you guys think. I found this small house at my local thrift store and I picked it up for 50 cents, and I thought it would be perfect to DIY with and do a small piece for my kitchen. So I started just by removing the top pieces there for the roof and cleaned this up really well. And this one had some small nails in it, so I had to be careful of those. And I did decide to go ahead and just remove that paper from the front of the house. It peeled off relatively easy, and I also used one of my Cricut tools to help remove the rest of the paper. I took a sanding block and just removed some of the remaining paper that was left and just smoothed that down. And I didn't record this part, but I took a hammer and just nailed in the little pieces of the small nails that were left sticking up. And I just took a paper towel and wiped off all of the dust and got the surface ready to paint. I used some of the Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, and this did take 2 coats, and I didn't worry too much about the edges or the bottom of the house because I have something planned for that, and I will be putting the pieces that I removed back on the top for the roof. So I just gave this 2 good coats and let that dry while I worked on some of the embellishments for the house. I grabbed 2 of these wooden snowflakes that I have in a multi-pack that I picked up from Hobby Lobby, I believe, probably a couple of years ago around Christmas time. And I just gave both of these a light coat of the antique wax from Waverly and just took a paper towel and removed the excess. I wanted my snowflakes to have just a little bit of sparkle since this is a winter DIY. So I have some of this glitter glue that I got in a multi-pack from the Dollar Tree. It had a few different colors, and I decided to go with the silver. So I just put down a small amount and took a flat paintbrush, just kind of spread that around or pushed it around the snowflake until I got all of the areas covered. I love using chalk couture for my DIY projects, and I thought this one would be the perfect opportunity to do that. I have some of these transfers that just have a rustic background. I have this one that looks like wood. I also have another one that looks like brick and one that looks like chicken wire. So I decided to go with this one, And I was introduced to chalk couture probably 5 or 6 years ago. I went to a chalk party and I have enjoyed working with that ever since. So you just take your transfer and you want to fuzz that on the towel. You will place it on your project and just use the squeegee and the chalk paste to apply that to the surface. And you'll just remove the transfer to reveal your design. And once you do that, you will want to take your transfer to the sink and rinse that with hot water. I wanted to give my house a cozy country feel, so I chose two different things to do that with. The first one would be the scrap piece of fabric that I had. I just thought this would be a cute accent on the bottom of the house. So I just laid that down and kind of eyeballed the area that I wanted for the house. Just traced it out with a pen, cut that out with my scissors, and I got that ready to apply to the house. My next embellishment that I chose to add to the house, just to give it a little bit of different texture, was some of this faux leather that I got from the Dollar Tree. And since I'm only using a small amount of this, I did take a ruler and just measure out the size that I needed and cut that out as well. Now that all of my embellishments are prepped and ready to go, it's time to start reassembling or putting together my house. So I just used some of the Eileen's tacky glue for the fabric. If you've ever worked with fabric and tried to glue that down with hot glue, you know that it leaves some rough, bumpy areas under the fabric, and I didn't want that. And I also used the tacky glue as well as just a small line of hot glue to glue down the leather on the top of the fabric. And I just used some hot glue to reattach the roof pieces to the top of my house. And the finishing touches for my house are the snowflakes. I wanted one of them to sit flush with the surface of the house, and the other one I wanted it to be raised a little to give the house some dimension. So I used one of the half wood beads that I had picked up from Amazon, and I just glued everything down with some hot glue, and this house was ready to be displayed. To start this project, I grabbed two of these smaller wooden slats that you can pick up at the Dollar Tree, and these did have some rough edges, so I just took my sanding block and smoothed everything down. Once I had these sanded, I took a paper towel, just made sure to remove any of the excess dust or small pieces of wood before I started to apply my stain, and I'm using the antique wax from Waverly. I like to use the same color throughout my house so everything looks cohesive, so I do use that a lot. So I just put down a good coat of this and removed the excess with a paper towel, and I just set these aside to dry. Next, I grabbed a piece of fabric that I picked up from Dollar Tree, and this one was the one that I chose because it looks a lot like canvas or burlap, and that's the look that I was going for. I am making a hanging sign, and it took me a while to figure out exactly what I wanted to do with this fabric, if I wanted to trim it down to size. But as you could see from the video, it is very thin and see-through, so I decided just to fold in each edge, maybe in thirds, and I just took my pieces of wood and measured that out, and I also had cut out some iron-on vinyl to apply to the sign And I just lined everything up to where I thought it would look good. Once I had everything lined up and I thought it had the correct spacing, I just took my rotary cutter and my ruler and just trimmed off the bottom edge of my fabric. I used some of my disappearing ink pens just to draw a line for the top of the bottom piece of wood and then the bottom for the top piece. I wanted to be sure I didn't apply my vinyl either too high or too low on the side, and these marks will disappear with heat. To apply my vinyl, I used my Cricut Easy Press, and be sure that you follow the instructions for whatever type of vinyl that you are using. Mine was the glitter iron-on vinyl, so I heated my press to 330 degrees and preheated my fabric for just a few seconds, and then I put down the vinyl and covered that with my protective pillowcase and heated that for about 30 seconds, and you can see how that ink disappeared from the pen. And I just turned over my fabric and reheated that on the back for about 15 seconds and repeated that same process for the remaining vinyl, and you just remove your transfer sheet and that's ready to go. Once I had my vinyl applied to the front of my sign, I wanted to finish off that seam on the back that the folds had created, and I decided to do this after I did the vinyl. It's because I knew that the heat from the Cricut Easy Press would probably melt the glue. So I just used some fabric hot glue and just went down the length of my sign and just made sure that that was pushed down firmly into place, and you're ready to do the wood on the tops and the bottoms of your sign. And I just applied those with some regular hot glue, and they adhered really well. No issues with that. To be able to display my sign, I just took some jute twine and doubled that over and created a hanger, and I glued that to the back of my sign, and this was ready to go. This last project is super simple and quick to make. You'll need a jumbo popsicle stick and some of these letter tiles, and I found mine at the dollar store, and a couple of those wooden snowflakes that I used in a previous project. And I just lined everything up and got that where I wanted it on the popsicle stick. And yes, that's a P on the end, but I fixed that in just a little bit. And I just marked off where I wanted to cut the popsicle stick. I didn't want those rounded ends. I'm just making a small sign to go on my tier tray. So I just cut off the ends with my miter shears, and this was a little difficult for me. It was actually a lot tougher than I thought it would be for a popsicle stick. So I just kept squeezing that and got some good grooves in the popsicle stick, and then I was able to just break off those ends. I took my sanding block and just sanded off those rough edges on each end, and then I was ready to stain this piece. Once again, I'm just using the antique wax from Waverly and doing the same technique as I have done for the previous projects in this video. I just put down a light coat and just go over that and remove the excess with a paper towel and set that aside to dry really well while I work on the other things for this project. I also grabbed 4 of these small wooden blocks that come in a pack from the Dollar Tree and stained those as well. I will be gluing these to the back of my sign as a stand. I painted both of my snowflakes with some of the Waverly chalk paint in white, and I also left some of the natural wood kind of showing through these snowflakes. That gave them more of a rustic look. I didn't have an R in my letter pack, so to fix the P, I just took a fine tip Sharpie and changed that into the letter R. Then I just got everything lined up on the background and just glued everything down with some hot glue. As an added embellishment to my sign, I just took some of this lace ribbon that I picked up at the Dollar Tree and just cut a small piece and glued that to one side, and I love this different texture that it gives the sign. I took my small wooden blocks and just spaced them evenly on the back of my sign and just glued those with some hot glue, and this was ready to be put on my tiered tray. That wraps up the DIYs for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed these, and I would love to know which of these projects was your favorite. Leave me a comment. I'd love to read those and get some feedback from you guys. Please subscribe to my channel, click that notification bell, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.